Happy Halloween, guys. I hope you had a fantastic Halloween and that you got all the candy and hopefully all the Pokemon you want for the event. Anyways, Halloween Cup was okay. I like the meta a lot. The only problem is like near the end, there was a lot of tap-tap teams. So there's a lot of Shadow Tyrannitars, a lot of Crustle / Shadow Victory Bell running around, and Charmers. So it kind of really killed the meta for me. Now I kind of just like meme or like test teams that might 5-0 consistently or are just really good in general. So I hope you guys had a wonderful Halloween Cup. At the beginning I had a lot of fun. Near the end, tap-tap teams kind of killed it for me. Anyways, let's get to the 5-0 team. So this team features the Galvantula Alolan Muk core that I've been using for my other 5-0 videos. Like I said, it works very well. I like it a lot. It's incredibly powerful and does a lot of work. Amok is a fantastic save switch, and it can really get the match or switch back for you depending on how your opponent plays. Along with that, the closer is, of course, Alolan Marowak. Now, Alolan Marowak is, as you've seen in Halloween Cup, a lot of people use it to close. It's a very good mon, especially if you can catch those like Wormadams or those Beedrills in the back or the Galvantulas. It's very powerful. And that Shadow Bone, when you watch this video, you're gonna see that little difference that Shadow Bone makes as far as like energy versus Shadow Ball can close out some matches. Of course, Shadow Ball is a very good move as well, but Shadow Bone in this video, I don't know if I ever debuffed even once. Debuff would have been nice, but just Shadow Bone's like energy alone and having that one less fire swing really made it close out a lot of matches. Without further ado, let's get to the 5-0 shoutcast. Alright, let's get these shoutcasts started. Now, the team, as you see, obviously your safe switch, and then the closer is Alolan Marowak, and Galvantula is the lead, as I mentioned before. We get our first match, and we get our Galvantula versus a Drifblim. This is good for us, because we win this lead pretty hard. Drifblim is a flying type, so Volt Switch will do super effective damage. My opponent switches out into a Mawile. I'm guessing they didn't switch out right away, because they wanted to bank an Icy Wind, but we can work with that. So I get the discharge off, it does heavy damage to this Mawile, and I switch to Alolan Marowak. Now the reason why I switched to AWAC is because there's no reason for me to keep AWAC alive because the Alolan Marowak I have beats both Drifblim and it can take on this Azu. So I'm kind of just sacking Alolan Marowak at this point, and we even have Galvantula for Azu. As you see, Shadow Bone does a decent chunk of damage to this Azumarill. Now, Azu is probably going to play rough or Ice Beam. I didn't count enough bubbles to see a Hydro Pump, and for sure it's a play rough. I get another Shadow Bone off. Does my opponent elect to shield? I don't know. And they don't. As you see, if you get Bone Club, if you get the Shadow Bone through, it actually does a decent amount of damage. Unfortunately, we don't get the debuff. And now I'm deciding what to switch in. For me, I'm like, okay, I can switch in Galvantula and just farm down. And I actually switch in my Amok to catch the Ice Beam. Actually, I think I do shield it. Yeah, I do shield it. So I switch in. I think I switched in Amok on accident, but it doesn't really matter. I could have farmed down the Azu or like try to just Dark Pulse it down, but instead my opponent elects to switch in Drifblim. Well, it doesn't really matter anyways, because if my opponent saves their Azu, Galvantula beats both Azu and Drifblim, so it doesn't really matter at this point. And technically, Alolan Muk doesn't beat Azu, like, entirely. You have to land that Sludge Wave, but at a certain range, as you see right here, it's already gonna die to Dark Pulse. My opponent's just gonna fire off these Icy Winds. Thankfully, Alolan Muk does resist Shadow Ball, so I can kind of chunk these non-stab Icy Winds. And I'm just gonna fire as many Dark Pulses as I can. As you see, even though they're debuffed, they still do a really huge chunk of damage. And my opponent's Azu is already in farm down range. I'm just gonna fire this Dark Pulse, and I banked enough energy on my Galvantula to fire my discharge and basically just take CMP. So if my opponent has a second move banked, I will win CMP anyway. So I kind of gamed that's why I switched in like this. Just so that I can get that discharge off, and this is GG's. This was a very interesting battle because my opponent, if it wasn't for that Drifblim, I'm pretty sure I would be in a lot more trouble than I would have right there. Other than that, we take the W and we take the first win. Now, like I said, with Alolan Marowak, it's really interesting. If they throw their bug into you, you throw Alolan Marowak in. If they throw you just throw in accordingly. Like if you win lead, if you lose lead, etc. As you see here, for our second opponent, we get our Galvantula into an Azumarill. We win this lead too, which is kind of surprising, but either way, we get the bunny. So Big Thick Bunny switches out, and we get a Crustle. This is horrible. As you see, the play I always do with Galvantula, this is the other two 5 videos as well, I will bank a lunge, and I will switch out to my Alolan Muk. Now, I'm going to shield because I feel like this is going to be a Rock Slide, and he definitely got enough energy to get there. And I'm just going to fire off Dark Pulse. You want to try to win switch with Crustle or bank as many shields as you can. Thankfully, since we did shield that Rock Slide, my opponent had to use up quite a bit of energy. So we're going to get to the second Dark Pulse here. Unfortunately, that Smackdown does go through, and I hate it when fast moves go through my charge moves like that because it hurts a lot. But our opponent elects to let Crustle go. So I was like, oh, okay, so what do you have in the back? And we get the Azu back. So Azu has returned, and I'm just going to let Amok go at this point. There's no reason to keep Amok alive. Amok can die, so we're just going to let it go to this Ice Beam. I have Galvantula, I won switch. There's no reason for me to do anything else. If you win lead with Galvantula, there's a lot of sweet things you can do, just like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bank 2 discharges, and then I'll fire. I know I win CMP, so as long as the turn duration, or if I timed it right, I can get 2 discharges off, or KO the Azu. I do manage to get that discharge off. We farm down the Azu, our opponent does not shield, and they have a Tentacruel. Now, I probably should have shielded. I mean, I probably should have just went straight discharge, but we managed to thankfully bait the shield. I think my thought process is we have Alolan Marowak in the closers, so I want to debuff this. I want to debuff it as much as I can, just so that I don't think Hydro Pump will KO. Unfortunately, we do get Acid Sprayed here. I do call the bait, thankfully, because if that's a Hydro Pump, I'm not sure if I live 1 down. As you see, we're going to test just really how much Shadow Bone can actually clutch our match. It does a decent amount of damage. Now, this second Shadow Bone, just by measuring it, this should KO, so this makes me pretty happy that it does KO. We managed to Shadow Bone, second Shadow Bone does KO, and then we take the W with our shield. Hopefully, I don't know if you actually live a Hydro Pump with Alolan Marowak with these IV ranges and -1 attack, but you know what? We took the W, we won the second match. On to match number 3. As you see, Shadow Bone is very effective. Shadow Bone with that energy gain, or if you're able to farm down, you can get a lot of Shadow Bones off, but I still haven't got a single debuff yet. But it's okay, it's 20%. You can't expect it to happen all the time. Now, we get our Galvantula for the third battle into a Venusaur. Now, we're pretty comfortable here. I fire off the lunge, I want shields, and I want to lower this Venusaur's attack. So we do grab a shield, and I hopefully grab the second one. Unfortunately, because our Volt Switches are resisted, because Venusaur is a Grass type, it kind of sucks, because you have to really, like, be careful, because Venusaur does charge a lot of energy, and you kind of have to be a little, yeah, you have to be a little careful. So we're going to just fire 2 lunges here, and then, or we're actually just going to switch out, because our opponent switched in Wormadam Trash. So we're gonna, remember I told you about the scenarios if you get Wormadam or if you get Beedrill switched into you, switch in AWAC. This is one of those scenarios. We're gonna switch in our Alolan Marowak and we're just gonna farm down. We resist everything this little dong has to offer, so Wormadam Trash is gonna go down, and we have enough energy for 2 Shadow Bones, which is great. Now my opponent's going to throw in, we already know like we got this in the bag. We just gotta play really sweet. I get a Sableye, so I throw the Bone Club bait, and we manage to get it. Now we can comfortably fire off Shadow Bone. I could have fired off 2 Shadow Bones, which probably should have been the move, because that debuff, that defense debuff would have been nice. And as you see, despite the fact that I've thrown this many Shadow Bones, I still don't have a debuff. But like I said, 2 Shadow Bones would have been much better, just because I can possibly get that debuff and do more damage. But we're pretty smooth over here. As you see, we do have Amok still. We still have a pretty healthy Galvantula. We're just going to let this Foul Play fire. That's why I throw in my Amok, because I'm like, if he fires Foul Play and I catch it, that's sweet. As you see, I call the no shield perfectly. Now, all I'm going to do here, just to secure victory, is I'm just going to double up on Dark Pulse. We don't need to shield any of these moves, because we will live a Frenzy Plant, so I'm just going to double up on Dark Pulse and then fire. As you see, we won this match pretty comfortably just because Amok is a monster. Amok outpaces a lot of the meta. That's why I love it so much as a safe switch, but also as a closer. It threatens a lot of the meta, and it works very well with fast-paced teams like Galvantula and Alolan Marowak. We take the W for the third match, and that's GG's. As you see, you could all that farm really does pay off in the end, because you can't fire off 2 Shadow Balls, but you can fire off 2 Shadow Bones. One thing I could have done better in the previous match was definitely fire that Shadow Bone to get that debuff. Now we get Galvantula into Tentacruel. This is pretty dang good. This is pretty good. We get a Tentacruel, so we won the lead. Now, our opponent's probably going to switch, and they switch into their Alolan Marowak. I should have fired one more discharge to get enough for a lunge, but I kind of I auto-switched. The new switch system is really weird, so I'm still trying to get used to it. So I switched in Amok right away just to fire off Dark Pulses. Again, a better move would have been to queue a discharge, because they're not going to get to a Bone Club or a Shadow Bone before I queue enough energy, and then I could have switched in Amok, but that's alright. As you see here, we managed to grab a shield with our Dark Pulse. Now, all we're going to do, I took one Bone Club, I'm going to shield the second one, I just want both shields. So, I want both shields, I want both shields or to take out this Marowak, either one. I want switch or shield, or just to take this to the zeros. Because even though Alolan Marowak doesn't do well against water types, as long as I can get some energy on it, like it did with Tentacruel, it could do a decent amount for us here. As you see, we managed to get the Dark Pulse goes through, opponent doesn't shield, and we get back the Tentacruel. Now, here's what I like. Alolan Muk isn't the thickest boy in the land, but it does resist Poison Jab pretty well. So I'm going to fire up this Dark Pulse, and now I don't switch or anything, I'm going to try to get to a second Dark Pulse. I'm pretty confident that because my Alolan Muk is still pretty healthy, even though if you look in the red, it's dying pretty hard, and my opponent didn't throw an Acid Spray, I can get to a second Dark Pulse and possibly either KO this Tentacruel or draw the last shield. In this case, we draw the last shield, and now they will have the opportunity to farm us down. I switched in my Spooter. Now, here's where it kind of sucks. Remember I told you I probably should have gathered that energy? Now I have to shield here, because if this is a Hydro Pump, my Spooter can't live. But it doesn't really matter. What we can do here is we can just literally Volt Switch down, get all this energy, and then wipe the back row. My opponent, because you can't get to an Acid Spray and a Hydro Pump that quickly. As you see here, that was an Acid Spray. My opponent sends out, I think that was that an AWAC? Oh, it's a subsequent Spooter, so it doesn't really matter. With all this energy that we gathered, we will get to 2 lunges. I win CMP anyways, because I have a really crappy Spooter that's near perfect. And that's GG's. As you see, we are stacking up these charge moves like no tomorrow, and canning out these, and taking the W. So, Alolan Muk, really good. Really good. As you saw there, it was able to tank all that damage from those Poison Jabs, and get so many Dark Pulses off. It's really nuts. Halloween Cup, if you lose the lead, you can still win. If you win the lead, it's really great. Like you see here, we won the lead again. That's why I like Galvantula leads. You win so many leads with Galvantula, and even if you do lose the lead, you're going to get shields. As you see here, our opponent does switch in Haunter, and we have Alolan Muk. This is great, because all I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to farm down. That's my thought process. I'm like, you know what? Why not? Because if I farm down this Haunter, I will have 2 Dark Pulses queued, which is really great. So, it's a Sludge Bomb. There's nothing that this Haunter has that will KO me. As you see, I get very lucky, and I live with what looks to be 1 HP. However, I do have 2 Dark Pulses banked, so I'm going to fire off 1, and I should live the Poison Jab to get the second one off. Actually, because my opponent is using Poison Jab, I managed to get 2 Dark Pulses off, which is great. If that was like if it was a one-turn move like Lock on or Dragon Breath, I would have died. Now we managed to get those 2. Now we can't lose. I have 2 shields, I have a Spooter, and I have a full Alolan Marowak. I send in the AWAC, and I can expect a switch from my opponent back in their Azu pretty soon. So I'm going to try to do something really kind of mean. I'm going to try to 2 shield flex. So I can live this drill run. You'll live a drill run, and then I switch. Back, as you see, as I predicted, they're going to switch back into Azu. Just going to fire off these discharges, and we're just going to hope that my master plan actually works out. So we're going to discharge, and then we are going to attempt to try to kill this bunny. Unfortunately, they're going to get a move off. they're going to get Ice Beam or Play Rough, and this should KO. And it does KO, unfortunately. I send in my Alolan Marowak with the Shadow Bone, and I'm praying that these Fire Spins actually finish off the Beedrill in the back. And as you see, Shadow Bone clutches it for us, and then we go for the Shadow Bone, and we get there. As you see, Shadow Bone's so clutch. I think Bone Club would have killed at this range. I just want to be safe, but we do get to the Shadow Bone. As you see, Shadow Bone with Fire Spin, quick energy, 2 shield flex, GG's. Now, I actually didn't record the 5-0 up until I realized that I had a 5-0, so that's why you see it switch here. You'll see shortly that I'm gonna here's the 5-0, and then it's oh, okay, I 5-0'd, and I was like, yay, and then I didn't realize it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Shadow Bone Alolan Marowak is very, very powerful. The summary is that Shadow Bone, that little bit of energy, that less energy for Shadow Ball really does matter, and you can really, as you see, you can pull off some sweet W's if you're able to manage energy very, very well. With Shadow Bone AWAC, we were able to double up on a lot of Shadow Bones, and with this really fast and shield pressuring team, it really does a lot of work in the Halloween Cup meta. Again, happy Halloween, guys. I hope you enjoyed that 5-0. Again, Shadow Bone Alolan Marowak is very good for Go Battle League, and it was really clutch for my last 5-0 for the Halloween Cup. Alright, so here's a technical summary, guys. Like I say, if you see a Firefang Mawile, or if you lose the lead, just switch to AWAC. However, you might want to expend Boat Shields, because this team's pretty weak to Crustle. You can still beat it, but you have to basically game your opponent, like you saw me in one of my matches here, was to where I wanted the Crustle dead. So you want to make sure you're able to take out Crustle if you get that switch in. So again, if you lose lead, switch to your Alolan Muk and try to take Boat Shields or take out the Crustle. That's super important. Or Tyranitar. Make sure you're able to take out the Smackdown user. Other than that, Shadow Bone, as long as you're able to align correctly, which, because I won lead all of these battles, but if you watch my other 2 videos below, I do have videos where I'm using Alolan Marowak as a switch, so you'll see successful switches, and then, like I said, just switch into Alolan Muk, try to win switch. That's your best option. Switch to A-Muk, win switch if you lose the lead. And my IVs are really bad, but as you see, IVs that are bad isn't necessarily a bad thing because you win CMP. So because of that, it can be really good. Anyways, again, happy Halloween, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you guys liked the video. And hopefully you caught a lot of shiny and Shundo and really good Shadow Bone Alolan Marowaks that can get traded to you from your friends for PvP, because Shadow Bone Alolan Marowak is really good, not just for the Halloween Cup, but for Great League as well. Again, happy Halloween, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.